Fearless is being yourself in all moments, even if that means admitting you're afraid. Welcome to the Straight Up Fearless podcast. I'm your host, Carissa, founder of the Brave Business and Leadership School, where how you love is how you lead. Thank you so much for joining me today on the podcast. So today I'm going to be talking about why it's important for us to start leaning into our feminine energy. So just a little backstory. I wrote an article for Thought Catalog called Why It's Time to Lean Into Our Feminine Energy. And when it was published, I remembered a few months back, I had someone say to me that it would be really cool if I started to read my articles and recording them so that people who didn't have time to read online could listen to them. And so today is the first time I'm going to do that. So I'm going to be taking a little bit from the article, but I'm also going to be sharing some stuff from my heart, obviously, and then just some other information to go along with it. So the reason why I think it's really important to talk about feminine versus masculine energy. And just so you know, I know a lot of the people that follow my work are very familiar with feminine and masculine energy, but for those of you that are not, as humans, we have both. We have feminine and masculine energy. Guy, girl, it doesn't matter. We all have it. Some of us have more feminine energy. Some of us have more masculine energy. We also have the wounded or destructive feminine energy and the wounded or destructive feminine masculine energy. So if any of those energies are out of balance, they can cause negative reactions within us as humans. And so I'm going to talk about the difference between feminine and masculine, and also what the symptoms of someone who may be in that wounded space you may see in yourself or within someone else. So first, we're going to talk about the feminine. So when the feminine is out of balance or in their destructive or wounded energies, you'll find someone that's manipulative, needy, codependent, victim mode, over-emotional, passive-aggressive, demanding, insecure, and very much a people pleaser. The masculine, when the masculine is out of balance or in that wounded or destructive, it's controlling, aggressive, withdraws, avoids, can be very unstable, competitive, and abusive. So if you just think about the men and the women that you have in your life right now, you could probably think of at least one woman who's got that wounded masculine. And then you may think of a man who's got some of that wounded feminine, the manipulative, the people-pleasing, the demanding, the insecure. We all have it. It's just whether or not we're allowing that part of us to drive the car on a daily basis, or if we have control of it. Because as humans, it's impossible to say that we're not going to have these shadow aspects come up. It's just a matter of whether or not we let our lives be led by that. Okay, so the feminine, when it's in its natural state, is intuitive, grounded, magnetic, surrendered, open, reflective, strong, vulnerable, creative. They set boundaries, they're empathetic, and also very trusting. And the masculine in its balance is disciplined, focused, structured, stable, logical, confident, protective, honest, accountable, has a lot of integrity, humble, and secure. So as you can see, we need both masculine and feminine energies in their balanced state. We don't just need feminine or masculine energies. We need both balanced within all of us. So it's actually a very beautiful thing to see someone who's got both of those energies balanced. It's also very beautiful to see relationships where those energies are balanced. But we are also living in a society where the wounded feminine and the wounded masculine are kind of driving the car. They're kind of leading our lives. And so let me just give you a little backstory of why someone might be in their wounded feminine or their wounded masculine. So I spent almost a year working with an amazing psychotherapist who will be on the show in a couple weeks. And she worked with me through some issues that I was having currently. But when we would talk about them and work through them, it would always kind of take us back to something that happened to me when I was a child or a teenager or even in my 20s. So here's what happens. So if you're 5 and you experience a trauma, what happens is your brain creates a protective mechanism to keep you safe from experiencing that again. And so what it does is it creates something to keep you separate, to keep you away from love or away from whatever it is that hurt you. And so you might, create these controlling tendencies or these codependent tendencies. And so what will happen is when that's triggered within you is that 5-year-old self, or however old you were when it happened, will take over. And so a lot of the ways that we're reacting in our adult lives are based on things that we experienced when we were a child. So I always say this, but up until the age of 7, our brain is simply a tape recorder, and it's tape recording everything that's happening in our environment. And it's like letting us know how to act in that environment. And so a lot of the things that we believe about ourselves today, we actually learned before we were 7 years old. And so a lot of the beliefs that we have about certain people, or the way our mind is programmed to act in a certain situation, if we haven't done work around that, can be based off of something that we learned before we were 7. So how do we get past that? How do we? First of all, being aware of it. So, when you see yourself reacting in a certain situation and you may feel childish, or you may feel like, I don't know why I just did that, just kind of journal or go back in the moment and say, okay, why did I act that way? What was triggered? When did that really happen? And kind of really allowing yourself to just see where that might come from. Also, meditation, mindfulness, breathing exercises, those kind of things that can kind of stop you from allowing that part of yourself to take over is going to help you tremendously. And we're going to have an entire podcast with my psychotherapist, who's an inner child healer beyond amazing. So she'll be able to share a lot as well. So I don't want to go on a big tangent, but that's just kind of where that came from. So one of the reasons why I think it's so important to talk about this right now is that we're kind of in this space as a society where it's like toxic masculinity. How do we stop the, blah, blah, blah. That's the big topic. But are we talking about the destructive and the toxic femininity that's also occurring? Because what we don't want to happen is just to shift the power from men to women, but it be the same issue. So I always say, you're not going to beat the very thing that you're trying to fight by becoming the same way. So just as an example, like the Women's March, I think it's great when people get together for a cause. But if you're standing outside of the White House with no shirt on and a pink hat that nobody cares about, and you're screaming that you're this woman, not only are you disgracing women, but you're also, the people that you want to hear you are never going to hear you. And not that there aren't beautiful things going on with some of that, but some of the feminist movements are actually pushing us further away from where we need to go. That is not feminine energy. That is destructive feminine energy. That is destructive masculine energy. If you want someone to listen to you who doesn't think like you, bashing them or trying to prove something is never going to work. And I don't know where that energy comes from, but I feel very passionate about stopping it, because it's honestly embarrassing as a woman to see some of that. And it makes me not even want to be a part of some of the things that are happening, because we just don't want a society where it's overran by angry women. I don't want to be an angry, nasty woman. Do you? If you do, this probably isn't the podcast for you. So we really want to, as women especially, stay in that positive, balanced feminine energy. And so I'm just going to jump into my article for a moment here and just kind of read through some of it and go over it. But just to go back to balancing the feminine and masculine energy for a minute, it's really important that, we do the meditation. We do things to help us stay balanced and grounded. That way, that angry child or, issues that we have are not taking over and we're creating more destruction than good. So here's why it's time to lean into your feminine energy. So feminine energy is one of the most powerful forces on earth. True feminine power is leading from your heart in all areas of our lives and allowing our intuition to guide us no matter what the voice of fear says. When a woman is connected to her feminine power, anything is possible, because when we're connected to our feminine power is intuitive, it's divine. We're also connected to every single thing that we need in the universe, like literally connected to it. So as humans, as I said earlier, we have both feminine and masculine energy. Right now, the collective human masculine energy is dominating our work, our homes, and our government. If either energy is out of balance, it creates the destructive or wounded masculine or feminine energy. So masculine energy is crucial. It's logical, it's structured, it's protective, it's assertive, it's efficient. We would definitely not have the structures that we have in place today in business without masculine energy. However, we have come to a crucial time in our world where we also need that true feminine energy leading the way. And in my opinion, the reason why we need this so crucially is because we're in a place where we have those structures. Those structures are so easy to create. The masculine energy has created so many beautiful systems that, like, I'll leave town for 2 weeks and come back and there's a new building. Those kind of things are just coming up faster than lightning. New businesses online. So what happens is, let's just say we continue to run everything with this just masculine energy, without the heart-centeredness, without the connection, without the intimacy that we create through the bonds in business. What's going to happen is everything is going to be run on logic, numbers, no connection. We're going to disconnect even more. And we can see with, teenage suicidal rates, the problems with people not connecting like they used to, and everything just being online and everything not involving the heart. And so that's why it's so important that we keep the feminine energy in there. The tagline to one of my courses is putting the heart back in business. And that's really what we need. And that's really what feminine energy is. And a man definitely has feminine energy when a man is connected to his heart. So that's why it's so important that we allow that to come through. And especially as women, let me say it again, that we lead from that, because we're the example. We're the mothers, and we're the wives, and we're the ones that the men listen to. When a man and a woman are in their natural state, the woman is more of the teacher and the man is more of the provider and the protector. And so if we become that way, we're not showing a different way. So we have to lead through love, especially as women. I don't want to see a society where we just have a bunch of women acting like men and creating more destruction in the world, when if we can stay connected to our heart and lead from that space, we'll lead everything into a better space as well. And I haven't always been this way, so I know what it's like to be on the opposite end, which I will share in a minute. So feminine energy is intuitive, it's flowing, it's heart-centered. If we can learn how to run our businesses and our lives with both energies, we will change the way we operate in the world today. Albert Einstein said, "The intuitive mind is a sacred gift, and the rational mind is a faithful servant." We have created a society that honors the servant and has forgotten the gift. A balanced human has a balance of both. So I also feel that we're moving into a society that's going to be more connected to its intuition, leading with intuition. I created a new business that's launching at the end of March, and it was completely created based off of intuition, which is the first podcast that I put out. So you guys will have to take a look at that as well. So I just want to ask you a question. I want you to think about this for a moment. If you're more in your masculine energy, the do, task, got to be here then, we'll be home then, not a lot of feeling, not a lot of heart, how can you let your intuition or your heart lead your business a little bit more? If you're a CEO and you kind of operate like that, what happens is it creates like intimidation within your company. I've seen this from employees that work for me when I was disconnected from my feminine energy. And I've also done consulting for companies where I've seen, organizations full of people tell me that they don't know who the boss is other than the directions that their boss gives them, because there's no connection. So the connection is the feminine energy. If you're more in your feminine energy, how can you add more structure into your life? I know for me, as I moved a lot into the feminine energy and I saw how beautiful life could be being in that feminine energy, I almost created an imbalance where I was too much in that. And I didn't have structure and I didn't have routine. And then everything got out of whack. And so I had to move back into balancing more of my masculine energy. I'm still kind of there. So as a female, I used to live extremely in my masculine energy, and not in a positive way. I completely cut out my personal life and spent every waking minute working on my business and cut out all aspects of my personal life. I was a natural born hustler, wholly dedicated to the mission, until one day I had the most significant eye-opening moment of my life. So you can read about this in the article, but instead of reading it, I'm going to share it with you. So when I was about 25, you can hear about this on another podcast, I cut out my personal life because of some experiences that I went through. And I was completely determined to become successful in my career, to figure out who I was, to in some ways prove to people that I could do it. And so I spent all of this time building a business, hustle, whatever I can do, stuffing down my emotions, stuffing down the fact that I probably really did want connection with someone else. And then I got there. And I remember specifically waking up one morning, and the night before I had gotten like 6 or 7 sales online, which had accumulated to more money than I had made the entire year before. And it was while I was asleep. And I remember for a moment being like, oh, wow, that's cool. Like I can, pay this off or do that. I can't remember exactly. And then I opened my email and congratulations, you've been accepted as part of the Forbes Coaches Council. Your article has been submitted and you've been quoted in Forbes. And so within 30 minutes, 2 of the biggest dreams I ever had come true. And I felt absolutely nothing. I had nobody I could really share it with that would understand, all the work I had put it in. I was alone in my house. And in that moment, I realized, and this was something I already knew because I had realized at a very young age that materialism doesn't buy happiness, because I had damn near ruined my life over it. But in that moment, it was like, Forbes, Carissa, your name is in Forbes. This is something that you've wanted your whole life. And there's absolutely no emotion, no excitement coming from you right now. You don't have to worry about where your next cent's going to come from, at least for the next few months. That's exciting. Still, no emotion. And I realized that in that moment that I had cut off a part of myself. I had cut off my feminine energy, the part of me that yearned for connection and yearned for intimacy and yearned for family and love. I had completely cut that off and was living in this masculine energy because I wanted to make it in the world and I wanted to prove to the world that I could make it. And when I got there, it meant absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. And I became so passionate in that moment to stop teaching necessarily, because as a business consultant, I teach people how to make money. I teach people how to build businesses. I know how to do that. But in that moment, I became more concerned about teaching people that doesn't matter. It doesn't. It's important that we make money. It's important that we take care of our families. But at the same time, you can't take any of that with you when you go. And none of it's going to make you happy if you cut out everything else. So I became very passionate about making sure that not only women, but men realized that we have to have a balance of both. Because if we don't, we're going to end up with all those big dreams that we wanted and be completely miserable and so far detached from the things that we really want that we don't even know how to get them back. And so that's why I think it's very important to talk about feminine versus masculine energy and why it's so important that we stay balanced. So I just want to leave you today with a question. What do you really want? What do you really want? And, for some of you, that may be a very triggering question. But what do you really want? Underneath of the accomplishments of making millions of dollars or having a new Mercedes or whatever it is that your goal is in business or in life, what is it that the feeling is that you're looking for? Because in reality, we're chasing a feeling. We're chasing something that we think is going to feel a certain way. And so if your goal is to get published in Forbes, what feeling are you looking for? Because you might find that feeling that you're looking for is probably not in Forbes. It's probably at home with your family, or maybe making up with an old friend, or maybe sharing your heart with someone. But a lot of the times what you're really looking for is not in that external accomplishment. It's a feeling that you're keeping yourself from having. So I leave you with that today. What is it that you're looking for? What feeling are you looking for? Figure out what that is and follow that, because I promise you that if you follow your heart, everything else that you need will show up, and you'll live a more happy, healthy life, and you'll have more of the things that you want. So I love you. I'm sending you all love. Spend more time following your heart and less time following your mind, and you'll live a beautiful life.